Hello, found footage fans, and welcome to We Found a Tape. We're a podcast dedicated to all things found footage. Shaky cams, paranormal sightings, and everything with an authentic edge to make it all feel real. My name's John.
And I'm David.
And join us as we hit play and uncover what lies beyond the tape. Welcome back to another episode of We Found a Tape. Today, we're going to be talking about another godfather of the found footage genre. I don't think we could talk about found footage without mentioning this movie specifically. It's the main reason why a lot of filmmakers are here making these types of movies. It's the reason why everyone loves it so much. It's the Blair Witch Project from 1999.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Personally, one of my top five. I think for a lot of people, it's going to be a top five movie. A lot of people just love the movie, not as such a found footage, but people just love the movie. It's highly regarded in terms of cinema. The techniques used were very groundbreaking. The promotional campaign was groundbreaking, and the numbers don't lie. It was made for $60,000. It made over $250 million at the box office. So it was at the breaking point of the internet, and it couldn't have been more perfectly timed.
That's a payday right there.
Well, it was for the studio. News recently around Lionsgate wanting to make a brand new Blair Witch Project movie has ultimately opened up conversations from the three main stars, Heather, Josh, and Mike. They were not paid royalties for the movie. They're owed big time. They're the main contributing factors as to why the movie was so good. From a movie perspective, really, without them, there would be no Blair Witch Project. Although it was created by Daniel Merrick and Eduardo Sanchez, a lot of this was improvised, and it meant that a lot of their stuff that they made while they were out in the woods is really what was used to shape the story. So this is something that's been brought up in the news recently. Pay up or shut up type of deal. But yeah, David, do you remember 1999? What were you doing in 1999?
See, 1999, I was a sophomore in high school. When they started advertising this, there was a lot of hype behind it, a lot of mystery, because it was just a bunch of camera clips, chaos going around and everything. And as far as the hype of the movie, all the scare scenes and stuff like that, it came out right out of the gate with a lot of momentum behind it. And I want to say maybe it was my cousin that I went to go see it with, or maybe it was my brother. I can't remember. But man, that was something to see on the screen. Like, you go on opening night, because that's when we went, and the movie just blew me away. It was something that I hadn't seen anything like that before at that time, because that movie totally blew me away. It even the in the media that that they said that a lot of people believe that it was real because it was so believable that it was an actual story that was going on. So crazy time in 1999, man.
Yeah, for sure. I was 8 years old, so I didn't get to see it when it came out. It was something I saw later on in life, when I was finding my way in terms of horror movies and realizing that was this kind of stuff I like to watch. So I didn't get to see it right when it came out, but I vaguely remember people talking of it. It was definitely news at the time. It was global, right? It was a phenomenon. It was like catching lightning in a bottle is the best way to describe it. The hype behind it was unreal. The promotional campaign, like we said, you said there was a lot of clips. There was a lot of missing posters, I think, as well. They listed the actor as dead at one point in IMDb.
Yeah.
and I think that's very much something that they took from Cannibal Holocaust. Like they made their actors sort of play dead. And this was not like how the internet is now, where you can look up and you can figure out, oh, that person's not really dead. They're in another movie. So really, what you found on the internet was, there was a bit more truth to it at the time, so it's a bit more believable. And they had a website with all the lore behind it, acting as if they were looking for these missing teenagers, and it really sparked the whole phenomenon, and it just was so well done. Let's do a brief synopsis of the film to get us started. So the Blair Witch Project from 1999 follows three students, Heather, Josh and Mike, who explore Maryland's Black Hills Forest to investigate the legend of the Blair Witch. As they document their journey, strange symbols, eerie sounds and paranoia sets in. Lost and terrified, they vanish without a trace, leaving behind their chilling footage of the mysterious events. I mean, that's not far from the truth of what happened. Like, they really did go out there. They were in a woods, which for people that don't know, there is an area in it's Burkettsville within Maryland. They offer tours around the area. It's hosted by a guy called Matt, and it's the Blair Witch Experience, which you should definitely check out if you're a fan of the movie. You can see the filming locations. You can camp out there. Pretty sure they show a screening of the movie. There's been a few times where Eduardo Sanchez and the other people associated with the movie. There's been times where they've gone out to join in on these tours and talk a bit about it. Watching it on a small screen on a VHS is, for me personally, I think the ultimate way to view this movie, because apparently, and based on the techniques used to film the movie, the directors, the filmmakers, they really didn't expect this to be seen on anything other than a VHS. Like, they were filming for, the lowest quality possible, which was somewhat high quality at the time. Not cinema quality, but pretty good quality at the time. Consumer grade cameras were all the rage. Everyone was documenting vacations and, family moments. So that's really what added to the realism of this.
It was super convincing, from this style of film back in the day, because, at that point, that was some of the newer, film technology that was out for handheld cameras. So, I mean, it was what you would consider good quality in the late mid-90s. I think you might be right on that one. I saw it in the theater. It was good, but there's certain movies that you can always go watch a movie in the theater, right? But I don't think you'll get like the full enjoyment just because if you go on an opening night, you're in a theater packed with a shitload of people, and you've always got that one person that's talking or doesn't have their cell phone off, or whatever the case may be, and it just annoys the shit out of you. But I think you're right. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I had seen it on VHS the first time around in my own living room, because you're in your own house, it's dark, you're going to turn off the lights, you're going to watch the movie, add to add the atmosphere to the movie, and you're going to be scared shitless in your own house. I mean, that's your safe space, and you're scared in your own safe space, right? So I definitely would have rather have watched it the first time on VHS.
We had the opportunity this past year to go and see it in the movie theater. They were having a 25th anniversary edition, and we were able to go see it in the movie theater, which was awesome. I hadn't experienced it before in the movie theater, so it was a first for me. One major thing, it gave me a headache because of the amount of shaky cams and like running around. Like, found footage is great and all, but when you see it on a big screen, like plastered up on the wall, it takes a Advil.
And I think that was a thing at the time, if I remember correctly, that there was a fair amount of people that went to go see this movie in the theater and got motion sickness because of all the moving of the camera. And, I guess on a big screen like that, the movement, being such, vast movement on a big screen, I can see that it would give you motion sickness if you're sensitive to that. I feel it was a 50-50 thing, some people just being dramatic because, the camera's shaking, I can't see shit, blah, blah, blah. And then the other ones that truly have motion sickness and, are getting sick from the movies. So I can see that.
I definitely had a bit of a headache after, but it was fun. Like I almost saw it as part of the experience. Like, I really Loved seeing it. It was just how I thought it would be if I'd gone to see it in 1999. I'm now seeing it in 2024, again 25 years later, which was, better now than ever.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure. But no, I think for me personally, I think it still holds up. A lot of people, it's not as scary as some of these other ones that tend to have like a lot of jump scares and stuff. But I think the scariest part is the unknown that's actually chasing them. Like for me, the scariest things can be when things aren't directly shown. Like you're left to live with your own imagination is where it can really get dark. For me, that's where it holds up. It's a cool nostalgic piece for people that were born and living in the 90s. Like it's very much a nostalgia piece. Like it's part of culture at the time. Everyone running around with a VHS camera and documenting stuff. And for a lot of people, that's where they got their start in making movies. Just with those consumer grade cameras, they would film themselves at home, making short films. I'm all for that. Loved it.
So I think it's fair, we talking about conditions in the movie, overall filming, on set, in the woods, whatever you want to call it. The audition process involved improvisation, with actors being asked questions like, "You've been in jail for 9 years. Why should we let you out?" Right? They were fully briefed on how intense the shoot would be.
I think it's probably a hard movie to try and sell people on. I think if you're really like if you're an actor or a filmmaker who's trying to get this sort of thing made, I don't think you're fully going to truly understand what you're getting in for until you're actually there. I know that they did live out in the woods. They camped. I'm not exactly sure how long the shoot was or how long they were out there for, but it was a good amount of time where they were sort of camping. They were within close proximity to the crew and stuff like that. It's not as if they were actually stranded in the woods. They were still within proximity, but they did use tracking devices for sure to make sure that they were able to be found at any time. They could call if there was any accidents or issues. And I feel like mostly during the day, it was them by themselves, walking around and, playing off each other, which really speaks to the professionalism of all three of them to make that feel like a realistic scenario. And then I think they would meet the crew who would come and get like the memory cards and the tapes, and they would sort of go through them, and they would pass on like meeting notes or like notes related to scenes and direction. So it's a very unconventional way of making a movie.
That one show that you can find online, it's a survival show where they drop them off somewhere to survive, and whenever they're ready to tap out because they can't take anymore, they just make the call and they come get them.
Yeah, I think the show's called Alone.
Yes,
is what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes, yeah, no, I love that show. It's kind of like that in a way. Like they were kind of dropped off in the middle of nowhere. They would get like stuff sent to them, like supplies and things like that to make sure that they were able to stay alive out there. Yeah, I think it was really just a case of trying to torment them as much as possible to try and get the most realistic experience, to make sure that everything was believable and that the point was coming across that they were out there and stuck in the middle of nowhere. And it came across that way. It certainly did. And I mean, we're still here 25 years later talking about it, so it really stands the test of time, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'd be excited to see what how it still stands as far as what it would look like in 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, I think it'll always be up there for me is a favorite of mine. I think it's one that I can rewatch a million times and not really get sick of it. And I think that's the sign of a good film.
Right, absolutely. I think one of the biggest popular scenes, because I think even Scary Movie kind of did like a parody of it, where she's kind of crying, talking to the camera, boogers and all kinds of nastiness running down her face, and that was very sellable for me, because that was very good acting on her part. That was truly like, if that didn't make you shit your pants because that's somebody out alone in the woods, there's something out there after them, and you don't know if today's the day or not. I don't know what's going to scare you. So
Oh yeah. I mean, after this came out, it was one of the most parodied films. Everyone immediately started to parody it. Like you said, scary movie. I think Saturday Night Live. I think they also got hold of it, and they were, doing the thing. Like it was just, and it's for me, it's one of the most iconic scenes in film history and in horror movie history. Anytime you see like a poster for horror movies and like for a book of like iconic moments, like that's always going to be in there. There's always going to be a picture of Heather Donahue with a close up of her face.
yeah,
Of course, it wasn't scripted. She did that. They didn't know about it until they saw the tapes, obviously, and they were blown away. She kind of like went off by herself. I don't think she said anything. She just kind of went off by herself, and she just filmed this apology. She was apologizing to the families of Mike and Josh and her family. She was really like getting into that character, and for me, it still gives me chills whenever I see it. It was iconic, to say the least.
yeah. She just for that one little scene there alone, she needs some royalties. Pay up.
Yeah, I mean, they did one film and they made two other ones, and they're gonna make another one. Like without those moments, without their, craft and without their attention to detail and their, willingness for the cause of making this film, like really wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't have stood the test of time. I don't think we would have been talking about it 25 years later. It plays hand in hand with the marketing campaign that happened. That's memorable for a lot of people, but it's the Heather Donahues, it's the Joshua Leonards, it's the Mike Williamses who are the ones that are going to be remembered forever.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. And the way that they marketed it, I can't see but one other movie that was kind of sold the same way. Paranormal Activity is the one that I think of that was kind of marketed the same way as something that was, filmed on tape and real. So it's not something that, a lot of films or even found footage films would advertise or market.
I also don't think nowadays, I don't think you get away with that type of thing nowadays to the extent like where people would genuinely believe that this thing was real. It was like that sort of the perfect timing of them being able to use the early stages of the internet to really put that out there and make sure that that they were filling in that lore and they were getting people invested. And I think mainly they were just doing it to make people scared for people that were watching the movie, just to get them scared. I don't think they fully understood how impactful it would be, how globally successful it would be. I think when they made it, that wasn't they didn't do it to make money. They did it to make a movie. It just, snowballed in the largest way possible.
I wonder where the idea for the Stickmen came from.
So I believe the Stickmen, I think it was just like their prop department. I think it was the prop department were just making things to try and scare. It got to a point where they were just trying to scare the cast and make sure that they were, really selling this. And I think it's kind of partly due to that. They were just putting them up everywhere and like try to freak them out, not telling them what was happening. They were withholding a lot of stuff. So I also feel like two of the biggest mistakes in this film actually add to the lore of it. One is someone actually dressed up as the Blair Witch, and they were all dressed in white. But because of the type of camera that they used, there was no lighting, so it couldn't pick it up. So you just kind of see this figure. You don't see it in full detail, but when they're running, it's towards the end. When they're running, you don't see it in full detail, but it adds, like I said, like your brain fills in what it wants and fills in the gaps, right? With probably the most scariest stuff. But apparently someone dressed up in white, they ran through the forest to try and scare them. It didn't pick up on camera, it just made it scarier. And the other one was when he's standing in the corner, that I think again they're supposed to cut away, but they don't, and that again adds to the mystique of it. And I think it is a really impactful ending. A lot of found footage, a lot of movies in general, really they don't have a good ending, and this to me just felt like a good way to end it.
And that was the scary part, because you see towards the end where they're running from something, you can't see what it is, mainly because the camera's running with them and it's all over the place. But it's adding to that fear that you're like they're with them, to where you're in your seat in fear too, because you can't see either or make out, even if you could, what that was. And they sold that very well in the run to the down the woods out of the tent. And once they get into the house, Heather goes up the stairs and starts seeing all the little handprints of children handprints. So everything that these people in the town talked about at the beginning of the documentary, started painting the picture as this, holy shit, this is real. And then Mike goes downstairs, he gets whacked in the back or whatever happened to him, the camera falls, nothing shows, still adds to the mystery of it even more. And then here comes Heather, sees Mike standing in the corner, and boom, she goes out the same way. And then the film just cuts, and it leaves you in fear. It's like, what the fuck,
right? And again, at the time, even then, found footage wasn't a term. Like, people didn't know what to call this. They would call it, horror movie, thriller. There wasn't a term found footage, and it kind of, after this, I think it became more of a term because of the act of footage that was being filmed for a documentary that was found by the people in the woods. The people are missing. We don't know where they are, but here is what they have, and we're going to broadcast this so that you can help us to find them. Is kind of how it was coined together. People ate it up. They believed it. One of the scariest scenes for me, especially seeing it in the movie theater, was when Heather's controlling the big expensive camera that they steal from their film school. I think it's a Datsun or a Datsun. She's carrying that and she's walking around, trying to find Mike. And that camera type doesn't have a microphone. So the audio has been picked up on the VHS camera that Mike has, that he's, so you can hear her shouting in the background and getting closer and closer as she's getting to where Mike is. But
I had no idea that camera didn't have a mic on it, so it makes perfect sense that you could hear her yelling from a distance. Okay.
So that's kind of what you're hearing, is the audio from the VHS camera and the video from the Datsun. So that's why she sounds so far away, but she's holding the camera,
Right.
But no, it's like an old school film camera. They were using reels for that one. VHS, I think, were tapes, but this one had like film reels, because at the beginning they're measuring it and they're like, trying to figure out how much like feet that they need for tape and all that, and like try to convert it. And yeah, that's like an old school film camera. And then
filming was hard back then.
Oh yeah. It's not like nowadays where you can pick your phone out and it's 4K.
Right.
You've got a 4K camera in your pocket. Now, or back then, it was these huge pieces of equipment, or the consumer grade film cameras, the recorded on VHS or High 8 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where people would document other stuff. So
I liked how this movie started out. It just started out, them going on a journey, talking about how, that they're going to do this documentary. They started the movie with, going into town, talking to some people. After you've seen it a few times and you can go back and forth and kind of just look at it again, things that you've missed, you kind of notice that, the younger people that they talk to that aren't under maybe 50 or 60, that's a bunch of BS. Or some are saying that's what our grandma told us when before bedtime, we weren't in bed by dark, the Blair Witch would come and get us. But you notice that the older crowd was kind of like real hesitant to talk about it because they knew something, they knew something was up, something was real about it, or something they experienced, and they were real hesitant to talk about it. So that added a mystery to it, and then they went and got the cemetery scene, so the opening for the documentary. But yeah, that really stood out for me. Once you can go back and watch that and reanalyze it a few times.
The people that were in the movie, a lot of them are still, living in the area where they did film it. So when you go and do these tours, a lot of people go into the town of Burkettsville. Probably, especially back then, like it probably brought a lot of attention to the town.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a good way. People, mystery chasers, and try to figure out if this was real or not. And just sort of morbid curiosity, people there try to figure out, what's happening and check out the town. Dark tourism. It probably brought a good amount of business to the town. I'm not sure how the locals enjoyed, people coming through all the time, but I think now they're warmed up to it.
Yeah, especially since they can make a pretty penny with tours and things like that, merchandise selling, start making a profit off of it. But yeah, you get that sense of dread, once they get in the car, they're driving to the woods, that as soon as they park, and I'm sure you've seen this in many movies where things involve going into the woods, where they take that last little screenshot of the car, and you're like, you're not gonna see that car again. you better look at that car real good, because you ain't seeing it no more.
When they're getting lost in the woods and they're going in circles, and they're starting to get irritated with each other, and Mike throws the map.
Yeah, that was the zinger right there. Mike just, he's having a laugh by himself, and then comes out of nowhere. I kicked that map into the creek or to the river, whatever. He just screwed everybody.
Yeah, they're all going crazy. They're running out of cigarettes.
That's a real big thing, to run out of cigarettes, because if you're a heavy smoker or even a coffee drinker, to run out of one or the other, man, you're gonna be irritable as shit.
And you can't think clearly.
Yep.
Withdrawals is a huge thing. So
Yep.
That was definitely the scariest part for me. I do not know how I would handle that type of situation.
Oh man.
For me, if we're gonna rate this thing, 5 stars all the way. Like, I don't think you can get a better found footage movie than The Blair Witch, in my opinion.
I wholeheartedly agree, man. 5 all the way. This movie is one of the pioneers, or the godfather, as you would say, of found footage. I don't think found footage would, necessarily be no, I don't think it would be as popular without this movie, because this movie paved the way for a lot of those found footage movies that you see today, because they inspire them in some sort of way, whether it's camera style, certain part of the movie, has given inspiration to create a lot of these movies. So yeah, 5 stars all the way, man.
Yeah, and it created a lot of technique as well, like a lot of cinematic technique that's used not only in found footage but in film and in general. That POV type of filming, cinema verite type filmmaking, that I think is something that they brought to the attention of the world. Although this is the most one of the most popular and one of the most successful, there was another movie prior to the Blair Witch, which is called The Last Broadcast, which I think is one that we should definitely talk about.
Oh yeah.
For me, I think it's also part and parcel with the Blair Witch Project in terms of the technique and the pioneer that it did at the time. It was also very early internet. Like, why can't we broadcast a movie and broadcast out to the world our type of movie? So Last Broadcast is one that I would be remiss if we didn't talk about, even just mentioning it, because I understand it came around about the same time as the Blair Witch, just before, or maybe it released just after. The timing is, I'm not exactly sure, but after watching it, I enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, Blair Witch for me, one of my all-time favorites. It's the GOAT.
The GOAT. Yeah, man, hands down. One of my favorites too. It'll always be up there as well. There's not much else I can say about that because I mean it is the Blair Witch, and if you have not seen it yet, I highly recommend it because this movie is one of the pioneers of found footage. So definitely go check it out if you haven't seen it, and if you have, go revisit it. Maybe it's been a few years for you. Go check it out. Maybe it'll resonate with you differently. Maybe you'll see something that you might have missed because, you know, going back now, I completely forgotten I kicked the fucking map into the creek because I hadn't seen it in a while. So that was a nice surprise. I was like, yes, he kicked the map into the creek. So that part I forgot about. So
yeah,
pretty cool.
I enjoyed seeing it in the theaters. That for me, that was the cool part.
So would you say now that you've seen it in a theater, would you have preferred to see it first in the theater or on a VHS?
It's a great question. I think I know I prefer watching it on as small a screen as possible on the lowest quality possible because I think it heightens the experience. I think I would have liked to have been there to experience it with other people. We're going to talk about Paranormal Activity in our next episode, and that is one that I did get that experience with, so I'm fortunate enough where I can sort of look back on it, and that's a profound sort of moment for me. So we can dig more into that in the next episode. But no, I think I preferred watching it on a film count on a VHS, VCR.
And I think that's why I kind of would have enjoyed to have seen it on VHS first. That was about the time, like I said, I was in high school. VHS were starting to convert to DVD at the time, or starting that process. So you know, I was growing up in the time of, you know, Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video, things like that. You know, if you lived in that time to where you could go and rent a video, that was truly an experience for me, anyways, because I grew up in it. To go in, choose your movie, grab some snacks if you were there. If not, you know, hit up your local pizza spot, whatever, head on home, make a night of it, weekend, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday nights, and that was my childhood, my teenage years. So definitely hits me in the nostalgia feels.
Yeah, seeing it again definitely is a nostalgic feel.
And I have no complaints about this movie. That's why it gets the 5 tapes.
Hell yeah, 5 tapes from me for sure.
Hell yeah. But yeah, that is our review on the Blair Witch. Well, that's going to be it for tonight. We've got to get out of here before the sun goes down, and we got to make it out of these woods. We got to get home. We're on Spotify, Amazon Podcast, now YouTube, and of course Instagram, and it's going to be We Found a Tape.
And remember, be kind, rewind.